video. And we're live.
And we're live.
And we're live. Welcome, Facebook family, Facebook fans, Facebook followers. I'm back with the Conversations with Carolia, and I'm here again with Jacqueline Richards because we had so much fun last time. We thought we'd do it all over again.
Yay.
But we're going to talk about something different because otherwise it would be same.
Yeah.
So, so our topic this time is love is a choice. What does that mean?
Okay.
Why that? Why that?
Why that?
Yeah.
Well, I've been doing a bit of delving into my own relationships and essentially unpacking them to see why they didn't work. And to see why I was repeating the same stuff.
Yep. I know this work. I know this work.
Yeah. So digging into that and coming out with love as a choice, not that we need to keep repeating the same stuff that we've been repeating within our relationship cycles. And yeah, so that's why love is a choice. And
but normally we have the sense or this idea that love is something that we fall into, that it's like this mysterious, magical thing that only happens when Cupid's arrows strike and you just never know when it's going to be, and then it's going to be that person, and oh my god, I fell head over heels in love with them, and even though they're not the right person for me or the shit's going down, I'm so in love with them.
Yeah, I remember my mentor saying to me that when you fall in love with someone, it means that you're actually falling out of yourself.
Ooh.
And that really struck me. It was like, okay, to actually be as love, or be, sharing love with someone is a really different thing to being in love with someone, falling in love with someone. And even when you say it, it's like you're falling out of yourself, you're losing yourself in that moment. Totally. I mean, it's delicious, Love is juicy and delicious and all of those other flavors. But looking at it in this way, in terms of the love being something that you are sharing between you, not something that entangles you, or means that you have to leave yourself or lose yourself to be as love, or to be in love,
to experience
love.
So something I'm noticing a lot, like I haven't been in a long-term romantic relationship for a couple of years now, and I've only had one in like the last 8 years, but I share love. Like I love so many men, I mean women as well, but I love so many men right now, and it's feeling more and more that I am love, that love flows through me. And so then it's like, who is the object of the love that I am? Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. And I think that also is a really great sort of backing for this not falling in love or not falling out of yourself. It's just that, this is love. I love you. It doesn't have to be this kind of in love definition or boxing of. It can be sort of different aspects of love. The love that you have for your cat is not going to be the same love that you have for ice cream, or for an intimate partner, or for a sexual connection. There's these different types of love, or different flavors that we can experience.
So if love is a choice, right, does that mean that technically we could choose to love anybody?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Does that mean that arranged marriages actually make a lot of sense if they're very wise arrangements,
I guess then it comes down to sort of breaking down these three things that I had previously smushed all together into this ball, which were sex, love, and intimacy.
Okay, so sex, love, intimacy. And let's talk about intimacy first.
Yeah.
How would you define intimacy?
Well, the sort of way of understanding it is into me see, or allowing myself to be seen, and allowing and to be seen by my partner, and my partner to allow themselves to be seen by me. So it's this open, openness of complete visibility, transparency, authenticity. You know, to choose that level of intimacy is, you know, it's not something that we practice with everyone. And then, you know, so intimacy can be practiced with everyone though, but it depends whether you've smushed it up with sex or sexuality, because if you smush those two together, then it's not something that you're going to practice with everyone. So I found that sort of defining those three things has helped me to choose the levels of connection that I want to practice with people.
So if you've got sex, love, and intimacy, you see them as three separate but intertwined things. And with someone, you might practice love and intimacy.
Yeah.
With someone else, you might have sex and love.
Yeah.
But not intimacy? I mean...
Well, it's possible, but and this is the thing. I mean, I was speaking to someone a little while ago who said that they'd never had sex and been intimate.
They'd never had sex and been intimate.
Yeah. Never had sex with somebody that they were intimately connected with. You know, and I found, you know, and I totally get that, because sex is a physical act that you can perform, you know, as a kind of mechanical process.
Yeah.
You know, there doesn't have to be intimacy.
Right.
You can still have sex with someone and not even look them in the eye.
It's like going to the gym and lifting weights.
Well, it's like a lot of people who have sex with the lights off.
Yeah, okay.
You know, under the covers with the lights off. I mean, how intimate is that? Because you know, you
I
can't...
would say it can be super intimate,
It
even
can.
though there's no visual field information going on. Like, as soon as the breath is intermingled and the energy is intermingled and
totally, I totally agree. And I think that's a different level of energetics.
I know, totally.
I mean, you know, the old way of having sex so that, you know, you weren't seen. You know, whether there's body image issues, whether there's fear of being heard by other people. So all of that sort of stuff can really sort of start to come into play. But yeah, I found it interesting to sort of unpack those three things and have a real look at them and see, you know, well, how can I bring more intimacy into my sex life? How can I bring more sexuality into the way that I love, the way that I create, and how can I bring more intimacy into my sexuality, or into the way that I do show up as love?
So in terms of getting into a relation, like a romantic, intimate relationship, right? Then knowing or coming from this concept of love being a choice, how does it change things?
Yeah, well, I think it goes back to our conditioned belief systems and our programming. And, you know, let's face it, a lot of our programming comes as love being conditional. You know, I will love you as long as you behave a certain way.
Yeah.
I will love you as long as you look a certain way, sound a certain way, are a certain way. And, you know, we soon grow up learning and understanding with that programming, you know, in place, that if we are not a certain way, then love is withdrawn. You know, and then we start to create ourselves or... create ourselves to fit that picture, you know, and then the inauthenticity comes in and the people pleasing comes in, and it's just, you know, we're not being true to ourselves because we desire love.
And we have that conditioning where we believe that in order to receive love, we have to be a certain way, we have to show up in a certain way.
Yes, yeah.
And so then we hide aspects of ourselves and we project different masks and roles. God, I've been down this road.
Yeah, and when I talk about love being a choice, it's like, well, now I can choose to love unconditionally. I can choose to love someone even when they're pissing me off. I can choose to love someone even when they're repeating their subconscious programs and patterns back at me. I can still choose to love. So that's part of it. That's a big part of this love as a choice. And, you know, that goes against this programming.
Yeah.
You know, it completely goes against it. That, you know, if I choose to love in that way, you know, is that person going to be able to receive it is one thing. Is it going to land? Because, you know, because their programming might be getting in the way. But it's really starting to play, you know, this sort of dance of of programming. You know, can I actually lean into that and make a choice to love in a different way?
Yeah. Because that love, if love is a choice, then it ceases to be like a bargaining tool or a negotiating tool. It ceases to be the whip in a way. Like, don't do that, I'm not going to love you.
Yeah, totally.
No.
Totally.
Yeah, right?
Totally. Yep, exactly. So we're not holding things back, and we're, you know, keeping our truth hidden or our true feelings because of fear that love will be withdrawn. You know, and I love what you're talking about, because it is the transaction. It is what we do to get love. You know, what we're willing to do to actually receive love. You know, and I got really interested in how these transactional processes play out in our life. And you know, sex as a transaction is a huge one. It's a massive one that, you know, I was definitely conditioned to use sex to get love, you know, to use sex to get something. It had nothing to do with sex. Yeah. You know, but I that's what I called it.
It's a bargaining tool.
It was a bargaining tool. Yeah. It was a negotiating tool. And it got me into places where I thought I was getting what I needed, what I wanted, and then the next day I'd be like, shit, that wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah,
you know, because I didn't feel loved, I didn't feel full, I didn't feel held, nurtured, you know, because what I was trying to get was value, or to be seen, or to feel like I belonged, or to feel special, to get love.
Something I'm also noticing, because I've been practicing like unconditional love with a lot of different people, and just loving with no ties and no expectations and no assumptions, and I notice, especially with men, when I'm stepping into becoming good friends with them, that I sometimes have to name it out loud and say, well, I'm going to unconditionally love you. Like it's what I do. And I notice that sometimes there's some fear, like if I allow this woman to love me in that way, or if I accept that she's going to want something from me, what does she want from me?
Totally.
You know, and having to sort of say, I don't want anything. Well, it may not. I mean, I may want something, but that's my shit. That's nothing to do with you, and I own that. I'm not gonna use the unconditional love as a bargaining chip to get what I want. That's just the water we're gonna swim in. We're gonna swim in the waters of love while we engage in this relationship, whatever it ends up looking like.
Yep, totally. And I think making the agreement there, because that's what you're talking about. It's, as soon as there are expectations, or, you know, especially unconscious ones that are kind of floating around, and, you know, she's expecting something from me, and I can, you know, whether there's a feeling of something that is coming or not, having an agreement, you know, setting the scene, you know, building the bridge, however you want to frame it, of what the relationship's going to look like. You know, we've got a thing between us. You know, it's a separate entity. It's called a relationship. You know, and what are we gonna do with this thing? And the other part of this that comes into this love as a choice is that, you know, most people take out of the thing, you know, the relationship. What can I get from the thing? You know, I need to meet my needs. What can I take? What can I get? And if both people are doing that from opposite sides of the relationship, then the relationship dies. It gets depleted. There's nothing left from it.
Right.
And I mean, as you know, you're sort of saying that you haven't had a long-term relationship in a long time. I mean, I've had 3 long-term relationships. You know, 6 years was the shortest one. So, you know, I've done long-term relationship. And the same thing happened to all 3 of those. I'll own my side of it. I depleted it until there was nothing left. You know, we both did, because we hadn't shifted the economy within the relationship. And I love this little piece. We hadn't shifted the economy within the relationship from a taking economy to a gifting economy. No, we weren't giving into the relationship. We hadn't made the agreement that, you know, I'm going to show up in this relationship as love. You know, love is a choice. I'm going to show up in this relationship and I'm going to give. You know, what can I give to you as my partner? And, you know, even as I say that, this kind of old piece of fear comes up. Yeah, but I'm not going to get my needs met if I'm giving. This is the constant sort of martyrdom of giving. But the thing is, if you're both in agreement coming from that place, then your partner's meeting your needs, you're meeting your partner's needs. It's this constant cycle of giving.
And also what I've noticed is the more I'm able to meet my own needs, the less I'm needing other people to meet them. But recognizing that we are interdependent beings, that we do need each other, and it's okay to have needs, and that's the thing as well. It's like this fine line.
Yep, totally.
I think that's a huge thing, what you just said, shifting from a relationship being something where you get stuff from to a relationship being something that you give to, becomes a vehicle for expression. A vehicle for expressing the loving self, the sensual self, the excited self, the joyful self, all the different selves. And then it to me it feels like if each person is connected to that infinite source within, and then each person is giving into the relationship becomes infinite, because it's ultimately connected to infinity within each person. So how can it ever be depleted?
Yeah, because you're making that choice to show up in that way. The other thing that when talking about making sure that I'm fulfilling my own needs, and interesting, I follow the work of David Data, and I have for quite a long time, and he talks about the 3 stages of relationship, and the first stage kind of being this old paradigm controlling relationship where male dominating female, that is history, that is the way that relationship has evolved. Now the rise of feminism pulling down the masculine, so emasculating men, to get to this kind of 50-50, even Stevens, equal relationship, which, as a woman, as a solo mum, all of this coming into business on my own is really important to have all this independence. And then there's another level though where it's like, but I actually have this yearning to be in relationship and to operate in a different way that isn't 50-50, that isn't this plateau, because there's a danger there of everything becoming depolarized. When everything is 50-50. It's like the dance is gone. And I think that when you come into relationship as a choice and you start to feed the relationship, then I think that the differences between the partners can really, really be offered in the giving.
Right.
And, the polarization can be in full flow, and different aspects of the way that we want to show up in this relationship can start to be expressed and played with in a very different way.
That makes sense. So with the polarization and everyone bringing their different gifts, it doesn't necessarily have to be along so-called historical gender lines.
No, of course not.
It doesn't really matter who's showing up and who's doing what.
Totally.
Just that everyone is being themselves in essence.
Yeah, exactly. And that's sort of blurring the whole dualistic nature of who we are, how we show up, and the old paradigm ways of how we've shown up previously in relationship.
There's so many shifts going on in a relationship right now.
Totally.
The whole paradigm to me feels like it's shifting. And I love what you said before about going into a relationship with agreements.
Yeah.
And I think for me as a woman, when I'm becoming good friends with a man, I'm starting to recognize that actually it's really useful to have agreements in that case as well. Because often the sexual attraction, and there's like all of these different levels of connection. It's like, well, what are we and how are we going to function?
Yeah.
And I remember one of my really good friends, Pete Longworth, who's fucking beautiful, and I'm going to get him on a Conversations with Cara Elliott as soon as I can. When he and I became friends, like, it was just like this, like the stars aligning, like literally. And we stayed up all night talking till like 7 o'clock in the morning. And at one point he said in that conversation, because I was like, this guy's cool and he's kind of sexy and we dance well, we've got a sexual vibe, like what's happening here? What's, that whole thing. And he's like, so I reckon we should like just draw a line in the sand and say we're never going to cross over into physical intimacy. And I was like, all right, I'm down with that. Let's do that. And there was such freedom in him naming that boundary.
Yeah.
Because then I just knew, it's like, okay, cool. So that's not what's going to happen in our relating. But the intimacy that he and I have and the vulnerability that I was able to open into from him and that level of support, like we are emotional lovers. you know,
Yep.
which
Yep.
is just like, oh my God, it's so extraordinary. So the idea of setting agreements to me feels like not just with the person you're in a romantic relationship with, but anyone that you've got a sexual buzz with or a sexual connection.
Yep.
Feels like it can be useful to just name that shit and acknowledge it and decide, okay, so you're hot, I'm hot, we're hot. What are we gonna do about it? Are we gonna like go
Are we
there?
gonna go there?
Are we gonna go there? Are we not gonna go there? Are we gonna,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that, you know, so many of us are conditioned that the opposite sex means a sexual thing.
Yeah.
I remember,
or a romantic thing.
Yeah, or a romantic thing.
Or both, or whatever. Yeah.
I remember a friend saying to me, "Oh, well, any boy that I met, or any man that I met as I was growing up, meant boyfriend. You know, that there wasn't these male friendships that that we can actually grow intimacy with, and I know exactly what you're saying, because it's like it's I think there's sort of an understanding that we can't actually turn that sexuality or that sexual attraction off, but we can, because we turned it on in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean,
totally choose to not act on it.
yeah, and when you name it, you put it out on the wow, I'm really attracted to you. It's
I'm
it's
getting
just
all hot.
it's going
I'm getting
on,
hot.
and you name it, and then it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, cool. Wow, that's kind of not what I've got going on for you, but wow, that's really flattering.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, then now I can shut that door. I
Yeah.
can shut that off.
Yeah.
And I think there's real beauty in that. And the other piece that I want to say in there is that when that choice happens, love is a choice, sexual attraction a choice. When we do shut that down, it actually opens so many other different pathways to so many other different types of connection that I think are vital to being able to express love across a much fuller spectrum.
Yes.
And I think a lot of people get sort of tunnel visioned into sexuality and sexual connection, that's kind of that's what their relationship is based on. And I was talking to someone about it yesterday, that a lot of my relationships began with a sexual encounter, usually a drunken sexual encounter, and then we kind of built the relationship from there. We kind of fell into a relationship, and it was like far out, and I'm in the midst of actually completely reframing that, of having entered into a relationship from a friendship, and building the intimacy and the connection, and doing it that way.
Yeah.
And so how many different levels of connection can we build? And for my work in parenting, it's paramount, because I gave a talk at the baby show, and I had this big word sex on the big PowerPoint presentation. Then I had a big line, red line through it, and it was just like, because sometimes sex is off the menu. When you're a parent, if you've just given birth, and you're 2 months in, the last thing you want is, and it's, and then because what's going to happen in your relationship, when sex is off the menu, and that's where all of what we're talking about is love. Love as a choice. We can choose to communicate these differences. We can choose to have these different levels of connection, so that if the sexual connection isn't available, if it's not on the menu, then we're held with all of these other pieces of connection, and feeding into the relationship so that it can sustain, in so many different ways than not just physical connection.
Yeah, I mean, if physical connection is the only way that you build intimacy, and then that's gone, then of course the intimacy can go with it.
Totally.
But if you know how to be intimate with each other without necessarily having sex, then oh my God, the richness that comes from, I mean, and then maybe you can have energetic sex.
Yeah, totally.
That's a thing, by the way.
That is a
Energetic
thing.
orgasms, energetic sex, we there's no physical, just like, whoa.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah,
You
it's
heard
a
it here.
Pretty amazing thing.
Whew, I am. We'll just take a breath or two. Tell you this one time? No.
Maybe we can have that discussion after.
Oh, Should we read what Tosh is saying here? If there's a connection of love and sexuality, what should it matter their gender? Yeah, I mean, gender's irrelevant.
Totally.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. I mean, I tend towards heterosexual. It's not the only connections I've had. So I do tend to, for me, because when I'm speaking in that, because that's the body of life experience I'm drawing on. But yeah, to be clear, we're talking about whatever genders, non-genders, anything, right? It's just exchanges between two beings.
Yeah, totally. And I think also there, and this is one thing that we were talking about this morning, is that once I'd kind of smashed my attraction box, you know, of what I thought I found attractive. Oh, this is my type. You know, no one's outside of my type. When I surrendered that and let it go, you know, and started to follow the energy that I felt when I came into connection with people, it took me into some really interesting places. And that was male, that was female. It was just, and I'm, you know, this is not about whether I made the choice to follow into those connections and take them to whatever level was possible. It was simply being open to experiencing them and acknowledging them and even seeing them, allowing myself to feel them. You know, can I allow myself to enjoy this attraction to this person who doesn't fit that old restrictive box that I'd created for myself. So you know, and when you connect with someone, as Tosh is saying, at that soul level, then yeah, gender is completely irrelevant. So yeah, beautiful.
Okay, so let me feel into where do we want to go with this. I think from an enrichment perspective, like in the olden days, last year, no. But in the olden days, often, like as a woman, when I was in a relationship, and I had back-to-back long-term relationships over a 10-year period, I found it sometimes challenging to have other relationships with men because of my primary partner's, you know, insecurities or not wanting to upset him or whatever it was, and all of the messiness, etc. What I feel now is, because I do have so many extraordinary male friends in my life, is the enrichment of having those relationships and the knowledge that when I do step into a romantic sexual connection, that man is going to be able to hold and handle the level of emotional connection I have with many men. And I reckon he's going to feel kind of relieved as well, because it means he doesn't have to carry the full emotional load.
Totally.
Right? Because I freaking love to talk.
Really?
Yeah, love to chat.
Yeah.
And the more we have deep relationships with many people, the more that our primary romantic sexual can be freed up to be fun and playful and not carry so much.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think that, you know, the kind of old paradigm or even socially imposed monogamy that, you know, that we're all part of, it puts an incredible amount of pressure on one person to be that person's everything. And I mean, no one can...
Nobody completes me.
No one can
Tom Cruise.
go under that, you know, that type of pressure. And so there's a couple of things. I think that, you know, yes, having beautiful, nurturing, nourishing connections with lots of different people that you're in relationship with. I mean, because we're in relationship with everyone and everything at all the you know, all the time. And then it goes back to agreements. Was like, well, okay, what is the level of connection? What is the level of relationship that we have that is different to the level of relationship that you know, you have with others and that I have with others? So that's one of the pieces that is, you know, really present now in this opportunity to redefine how we are in relationship.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know,
like almost beyond monogamy and beyond polyamory, because even that's kind of an either or.
Well, polyamory is a reactionary to
monogamy,
to old paradigm monogamy.
Yeah.
You know, where there was jealousy and codependence and, you know, entanglement. You know, and it was entanglement. You know, I did this 3 times. I know what entanglement.
Done.
You know, I was the entanglement queen and the codependent queen as well. I need 2 crowns.
2 crowns. Yeah.
But, you know, it was like I had no way of operating as an autonomous being back then, because I was conditioned to need someone
Yeah.
and to mold myself to that someone. And now I don't have that anymore. I can choose how I want to show up in this relationship. That isn't it's not defined by that old package of what socially imposed monogamy was, which was all about transaction. It was all about what can I get from you if I give you this. So that was one piece. What was the other piece? Can't remember. It'll come back.
Something else I want to touch on before we start to wrap up is what I've noticed in the past is when I've had quite an intense connection and just like fallen into it, etc., is it's tend to be what I've called wound relating, where my wound matches perfectly their wound on the opposite, and so coming together was like amazing and incredible and extraordinary. Oh, there's the shit coming up, and we don't have the tools to handle this, and this is going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what I began to wonder, because I was able to take those relationships and use what was coming up to do the healing work, which was awesome. But then I was like, what would it feel like to step into a relationship that wasn't initiated or ignited by a wound relating? You see?
Yeah.
Where it's actually stepping in from joy or from power or from ease or from love.
Yeah.
And I still, like, when I look at my last couple of long-term relationships, they still came from, it felt like to a degree they still came from that. It was almost like a part of me knew if I relate with this person, the wounds that are going to come up is going to be really amazing for healing purposes. And it's going to be really fucking tough.
Yeah.
It's like, so done. I don't, my sense is I'm like, have I done enough healing work so I don't need relationship to be that crucible anymore? Which is not to say shit won't come up, but it's not the primary igniter of said shit.
Yeah, I've got this other piece, so I'll come back to that. But the other piece around the monogamy and the polyamory sort of
The
ends of the spectrum, because I can totally see why polyamory has sort of come about. It's like we're trying to find a different way.
Yeah.
But we've flown so far over to the other end of the spectrum that it is reactionary. And I guess my invitation to myself and to others is, okay, how do I find where my place is on that spectrum? Of sort of old or monogamy, let's just say new monogamy, of committing to one partner and having these deeper emotional connections elsewhere to not put the pressure on that one partner. But how does that look in terms of where that is on the spectrum, and how does that look with a different partner? That there's no box of this is the way you do relationship.
No,
it's like I come into relationship with another person and wow, that what happened in my last relationship doesn't fit for us. So what does our relationship look like? So that was the piece I wanted to add there, but and I think that's really it's the opportunity is here now to actually do that, and it feels so ripe for that to let surrender all that old stuff away of how we operated in relationship, and now to actually define it for what feels right for the two people or more than two people that are involved.
I love that. Agreements-based relationship based on the needs and the desires of the two people stepping into the relating.
Yeah, from a really clear, transparently communicated place, without fear.
And then holding all of that with that unconditional love and truth.
Yeah, totally.
Like that's kind of the container that holds the agreement and the relating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fucking next level. Next fucking level.
Totally. Yeah, it is. It's exciting, It's just to look at my past history and then look at what I'm entering into now and what's unfolding. It's a completely different story. And it's refreshing to see these other examples of the way that people are choosing to do things differently.
Yeah, because we can.
Because we can, and this is definitely a big part of my buzz. That we have a choice. You know, we can choose how we show up in our relationships, and even to the point of, okay, my relationship is good, and yeah, it can be better. Mm-hmm. You know, even if it's good, it can be off the chart.
Yeah,
It can be next level, and you know, how can I do things differently to allow for that, to facilitate it, to to step into that.
So before we finish up, I'm curious to know how this concept of love as a choice is informing the work that you're doing with people. And if you've got anything juicy coming up that you want to tell us about.
Yeah. Well, I've got a new part of my program that's called All About You. So the first part is called All About Me, and obviously I, in my own journey, had to make it all about me so that I could take responsibility. And there's along with this kind of taking mentality in our relationships, there's a lot of blame. There's a lot. It's like, well,
your fault.
You're not. My needs are not getting met, and it's your fault.
Yeah.
So what making it all about me got me to the place that it got me to was taking self-responsibility. That that this is my responsibility to meet my own needs and come into relationship from a place of fullness, from a place of wholeness, an autonomous place rather than the codependent, I need you to complete me stuff. So the second part of that is all about you, and that's the shifting that out of that taking economy into this gifting economy. How can I show up in relationship in a different way? So I've got an event coming up in 2 weeks' time on Friday night, May 10th, and at the moment it's going to be in Mount Albert.
This is Auckland, New Zealand.
Auckland, New Zealand. So 7 p.m. till 10 p.m, and it's a little taster of a new way of showing up in relationship. So it's for couples, it's for anyone. My work is around parenting, but as we've discussed before, we're all parenting all of the time because we all have that smaller version of ourselves that is still present, and we are parenting that smaller version of ourselves. We also parent each other in our relationships because our first primary relationship was a parenting relationship. It's a reflection of that. So I work a lot with parents. I also work a lot with individuals around their self-parenting. This one is around reconnection for the couple in their relationship. So whether you're a parent or not, it's for you. That's coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's going to lead on to a program of work, which will be all about what we've been talking about, showing up in your relationship as a choice.
Epic. And if you want to work with me on this kind of thing, particularly on how to hold a container of unconditional love and truth, which is kind of the bedrock of the work that I do, I'm running an Awakened Heart Warrior activation in Mexico at the end of September. It's like a 5-night, 6-day immersion training where you'll be trained in the way of the Awakened Heart Warrior, which is all about embodying unconditional love and truth. It's going to be fucking epic. It's going to be amazing. I know, totally. Alrighty, Jacqueline, thank you so much for coming in to talk about love, man.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. And thank you all for watching. Share this out with anyone you think might benefit from this paradigm-busting way of looking at relationships. And we're over and out.
Ciao for now.